Hey, this is Pastor Tony. Welcome to this week's Sunday Leftovers. When was the last time you stopped and thanked God for the people in your life? So that's our question for today. When was the last time that you truly stopped and thanked God for the people who are in your life? Not just for what they do, but for who they are, for the ways that God has used them to shape your faith, to steady your heart, or to carry you through a hard season. That's where we're going today, because this week's message kicked off a new series, The Way of Gratitude. And the first step on that journey is gratitude in partnership, from Philippians chapter 1, verses 3 through 11. Paul writes from prison, and he says, "I thank my God for every remembrance of you." It's one of the most joy-filled letters in the New Testament, and it's written in chains. That alone tells us something powerful about where gratitude really comes from. We started Sunday by looking at how Paul's gratitude is deeply personal. He's not thanking God for perfect circumstances. He's not. He's in prison. He's thanking Him for imperfect people, for friends, for real believers, real co-laborers in the gospel. When Paul remembered Lydia and the Philippian jailer and all of the believers in that city, he saw evidence of God's grace. He used the word koinonia, meaning fellowship or partnership, a bond it's more than just teamwork. It's like a shared mission. It's shared suffering and shared joy. Here's the takeaway from that. Gratitude begins when we start seeing people as gifts from God. So here's a thought for your drive today or your quiet time tonight. Who are your Philippians? Who do you need to thank God for? When you begin to view others through the lens of grace, you start to see that every person that God puts in your life is part of His plan to grow your gratitude. We also talked about the fact that gratitude doesn't just look backward, it looks forward. Going on in verse 6, Paul says, "I'm sure of this, that He who started a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." That's one of those verses that you underline, you highlight, you write on a sticky note, because it reminds us that our confidence isn't in our ability to stay faithful. It's in God's promise to finish what He started. Paul looked at a group of believers who were still learning, still growing, still struggling, and still thanked God for them. Why? Because he knew God's hand was on them. Gratitude says, I may not see the finished product yet, but I trust the one who's doing the shaping. Let that sink in for just a minute. Maybe somebody in your life isn't where you hoped they'd be spiritually. Maybe you're not where you hoped you'd be spiritually. But Philippians 1:6 is God's reminder. I'm not done with you yet. And when you really believe that, your gratitude begins to deepen. It becomes steady and not based on the situation that you're in. You can thank God even in tension and bad circumstances because you trust His timing. And then finally, Paul turns his gratitude into prayer. He says in verses 9 through 11, "And I pray this, that your love will keep on growing in knowledge and in every kind of discernment." That's so different from how we usually pray for people. We tend to pray for comfort and protection or relief, all the good things, but Paul prays for growth. He asks God to make their love wiser and deeper and more discerning. That's because love without truth can drift, and truth without love can wound people. But love that's guided by discernment, it leads to fruitfulness, the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. Gratitude always leads to prayer that others would grow closer to Jesus. That's how the family of faith stays healthy. Maybe one way that you could live out this message this week is to take the person that you're thankful for and start praying for their growth. Don't just thank God for what they've done in the past. Pray for what God is doing in their future. So let's take a moment and talk about how to live this out. Here's a simple rhythm to carry with you. Remember, rejoice, and respond. Remember the people God placed in your life who have strengthened your walk. Rejoice by thanking God for them in prayer. Be specific. Mention their names before the Lord. And respond by telling them. Send a text or write a note or give them a call and just say, hey, I wanted you to know that I thank God for you. That's a spiritual attitude. Gratitude changes how we see people. And when you practice it, you'll notice your attitude towards them and even your attitude toward life itself begins to change. Because here's the truth. You can't stay bitter towards someone that you're actively praying for. Gratitude disarms that resentment. It quiets comparison and it restores joy. So this week, walk in the way of gratitude by letting thankfulness flow through your relationships. It'll bless others and it'll also free you. Now, next Sunday, we're going to keep walking this road together and talk about gratitude in the process. Learning to thank God not just for the people in your life, but for the seasons that He leads you through. But for now, take Philippians 1, 3 through 11 and make it your prayer. Let your gratitude drive you to remember, rejoice, and respond. Thanks so much for joining me on this week's Sunday Leftovers. If this conversation encouraged you, I'd like you to share it with somebody that you're grateful for. Let them know they're part of the story that God is writing in your life. And if you missed the full message, Gratitude in Partnership, you can find it on our YouTube channel, on our website, calvarymonkscorner.net, or in the Calvary Monks Corner app. Until next time, keep your eyes on Jesus, keep your heart grateful, and keep walking in the way of gratitude.